Okay, I think we're technically live. Hello,
Cool.
everybody. This is Glass Half Dead, and I'm joined today with Matt. Matt, do you want to say hello?
Hello. How's everyone?
Now, a lot of people might not know who you are, but before we do the introductions, let's quickly define the video. What are we doing here? Well, today we are doing. I've got your audio on another channel. Hold on, hold on. Okay, that was awkward. Anyway, today we are going to be talking about the Heretic Astartes, who I still struggle to not call Chaos, because Chaos is now a much bigger thing, but this is very specifically Heretic Astartes. They are a bit of an interesting list. We're going to go through all of the data sheets. We're going to talk about the sub-factions, the must-remember tactics, and also give you a few variants. For example, I think anybody with a passing knowledge of Heretic Astartes know Berserkers are cool, and you also have some interesting guns, and you can spam the board with cultists. We're going to talk about all of that, but we're also going to give a few alternatives. Maybe you have a thing for Possessed, maybe you just don't like Berserkers, I don't know. But Berserkers are definitely better, but we'll get into that. But first, I suppose I'd like to throw over to you. First off, who are you? And secondly, are Chaos Space Marines and the Heretic Astartes just worse Space Marines?
I'm Matt Hurl. I've been playing pretty much Kill Team since the first day it came out. Even iterative editions that were like kind of tacked onto the main 40k rulebook way back in like third and fourth edition. Basically been playing Chaos Marines or Heretic Astartes, however you want to say it. It's been kind of my main jam since I started, because that's been my 40k army since I started playing that in third edition 20 years ago. So I've always had the models. If you play Heretic Astartes like Space Marines, they are a worse Space Marine. They are completely different animal, and they need to be, just because they have the T4 3-up save doesn't mean they're played the same. They're just played very differently. And you gotta kind of recognize that.
Okay, that makes sense. And of course, we will get into exactly what that means a little bit later. I suppose the other question that I had that or not a question, sorry, a shout out to everybody in chat at the moment. If you have any questions, please ask. As otherwise, we're just going to go through the bullet points that we've laid out and just give you everything you need to know. Any questions, feel free. So, the first thing we start... Oh, sorry. Would you like to kind of state your claim to fame? Why did I pick you over anybody else?
I was kind of asking myself that question when you asked me. I came in third at the first Nova Open with Heretic Astartes. I was pretty top rated in ITC last year with him. I don't know where I wound up. This year is kind of rubbish, so that doesn't count. I won several competitions with them. I won the third bracket at Nova last year with them. And this, I think I just play them a lot, and I think I do pretty well with them. So I think that's why kind of people know me for that too.
Sure. And also one thing to mention before we do jump into the data sheets, which is where we're going to start, linked below in the description is actually a TTS tournament that you are hosting, or well, running. Would you like to just say a little bit about why I've linked to that? Because I don't know.
Yeah, it's the we call it the Worldwide Open. It's based off of the draft Nova packet that we got this year for the Nova Open that got COVID canceled. It's basically a very traditional back to basics tournament. It's going to be arena and open boards, 100-point lists, and it's going to be hold 2, hold more, with randomly generated secondaries. So it's very different than kind of what we've been playing online. For anyone who's been playing online this year, it's kind of, like I said, kind of back to basics, which I think is good from time to time. I don't think it's the superior format, but I think it's good to mix things around, let different factions kind of come to the top there.
Okay, yeah, so definitely check that out. Certainly, the guys over at Command Point, which is where we seem to be running all of the TTS tournaments, Really good. If you don't know what TTS is, right below the link to your tournament is my little guide on how to play Kill Team in TTS. So
Which is
let's.
probably the best guide if anybody's looking to play on YouTube. So definitely
Thank
watch
you.
that.
I will slip you the money afterwards. Don't worry. Uh, okay, let's jump into the data sheets. We have. Do you? Well, sorry. First, do you want to give just a very brief? What are Heretic Astartes? How should you approach them? And then we'll jump
So,
into the specifics.
so Heretic Astartes is a very interesting faction because it is said that when you build your roster and you build your teams, you need to either fight toughness 4 3-up save models, or toughness 3 5-up save models. And if you can customize your list for those two, you can pretty much beat or competitively play 90% of the teams out there. Chaos is different because we can do both, and that's one of the things I did for what was it? What was the one that we played on Arena?
I can't remember. You beat me, but
Yeah, but that one. So in that one was good. There, people would come against me and they wouldn't know: am I bringing cultist spam or am I bringing a lot of Marines? And so it's hard to kind of nail them down if you don't know what you're playing against. Which I think is one of the biggest advantages this team has against other teams. If you're going against Marines, everyone's going to be T4 toughness, T4 3-up save. If you're going against Dark Eldar, it's going to be a lot of T3 5-up saves. But here you kind of don't really know, and so it kind of keeps your opponent guessing, and you can, if they go in for kind of both, you can hopefully try to decide where your matchups are going. And so they're not using the weapons that are effective against that guy, if that makes sense.
sure. So in a bizarre way, even though they have fewer options than Adeptus Astartes, and of course I relate to them because they're the more known faction, bizarrely, because you are not tied into the T4 3-up save, you are actually more flexible in a kind of odd way.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
Well, let's jump into the data sheets then. I assume you have them open. What's the first one you've got open?
Chaos Cultists.
Cultist first? Okay.
These guys are going to be your. I mean, when Kill Team's first release, you got two data sheets: Chaos Cultists and Chaos Space Marines. Chaos Cultists are great. They are really dirt cheap, and I cannot stress the amount of things these guys can do for you. And to have them on your list, like people might look at them and say, "Oh, they're worthless." They're really not. The bottom line is, if you get shot with a overcharged plasma gun at a Space Marine or a Cultist, it's equal odds of taking one or the other route, just about. The Marine might get a 6-up save, but that's really all the difference is, because it comes down to that 4-up injury roll, or 5-up if you're in cover. So Cultists are great for if the person's got Psychers, you throw them out in front. So any of those Cybolts have to hit them before they hit your actual worthwhile guys. If you're got a scary charge, you can throw them in first. They're definitely the great thing is they're definitely played the way the fluff says they're played. They're just fodder. The Chaos Space Marines just throw them out in front and let them die in droves. They're also really cheap to hold objectives. You got a cheap guy sitting in your backfield. I play a lot of Marine players, and what stinks about them is sometimes they have to put, a expensive Primaris Marine on a back objective that's not doing anything, but you need to hold that objective. Whereas with Chaos, I just put a cheap Cultist back there and he's good to go.
Mm.
So Cultists are really great in that manner. You can give them Flamers, doubles their points, but a Cultist with a Flamer is just as good as a Marine with a Flamer as when it comes to damage output.
Yeah.
I sometimes give them Stubbers only because it's a point, and statistically it's slightly better than an autocannon, and sometimes you have a point to play with. And then of course, you have a Cultist champion as your leader, because again, it's a cheap guy you just tuck in the back and you're not worried about him.
Now, the interesting, I say interesting, that's a very, maybe not that, too much, but the Cultist Champion is the only Cultist that has the option of taking a shotgun. Would you rate that on them at all, before we jump into their weapon options?
I don't bother with it. I keep mine with just a last gun. I keep all my guys with last guns.
Sure.
Or
Okay.
auto guns.
Auto guns, yeah.
and they can run around and they just do their thing. But yeah,
Okay. Now, are you preferring broad assault weapons or also guns?
auto
No,
guns.
yeah, that's the right word.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
on
mean,
all of them?
what's that?
On all of them, or is there ever a question?
All of them.
Okay,
I back when I first started playing, I didn't have enough cultists, so I ran one with the close combat weapon and the pistol, and he's okay. I mean, the thing is, I mean, he's got a couple of attacks, but he's still only strength 3, toughness 3 with a 6-up save. He's going to get stomped by pretty much anything.
okay,
And again, I don't really care if they do damage in close combat. But with at least the auto guns, I can have them on objectives. I can have them in funny places, and they can take pot shots. I mean, they can do crazy things once in a while. Like I've had one kill a plague marine that was in cover, which was the most incredible thing that ever happened to a cultist.
yeah,
but um, but yeah, and with the auto guns, you can just kind of mass fire at people, and eventually, like I said, you might pick off something with a T3, a poor save or something. I've never had that much output from the close combat weapon and the pistol.
sure. Okay. Now, the other thing about cultists and the majority of, obviously, the chaos is you can give them different marks. I
Yes.
think we'll talk about at the end of the data sheets, unless you think it's relevant to know now. What do you think?
No, that's fine. We could talk even with list building is a
Yeah,
good place for it too.
yeah, yeah. I I
But yeah,
think
especially
that
if we're just looking at core,
yes,
the marks didn't matter when you just built a core list.
it was very confusing back then. I remember. I
Yeah.
was like, why? But why? Yeah. Okay. Yep. So we'll talk about that later. Suddenly, I know that when I was first looking at Heretic Astartes, that was something that did kind of confuse me because it didn't matter, and I thought maybe I was missing something. But we will give that a full rundown once we've gone over the data sheets.
Sure.
Is there anything else about cultists?
That's about it.
Yeah, I agree. They're pretty simple. You're saying run them all with just the standard assault auto gun. That's the word. Even if you think, well, I'm using them to get into close combat,
It's only an extra
don't
attack.
bother. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Okay. People are asking questions in the chat, but they are all seem to be about list building or kind of why would I use chaos when I could use something else. So we'll take that after the data sheets, I think. Now,
Okay.
next up, I'm going to assume because I use a different, I use the online guide. I'm not using the actual book that I have with me. Chaos Space Marines.
Yep.
Go for it.
They're not bad. They got a little bit better with the annual because now you can take autocannons. I like running them. I like running a plasma sniper and an autocannon heavy if I put them in my roster. They're just really nice strengths. The plasma rifle is strength 8, AP3, 2 damage, and the autocannon is 2 shot strength 7, AP negative 1 or 2. Sorry, I forget, and 2 damage. So they give you some range shots. In arena, I think a flamer veteran is very useful, just because you can run him up and sit him in a door and say, "Come at me, bro," kind of thing, and it really blocks people up there, which is what he would do. But in open, probably wouldn't take one, just because people just can run around him. Whereas arena, sometimes they can really find a good bottleneck, and just roast people trying to come at them. The champions are good if you're looking for an extra special close combat weapon. He's probably, when we get to berserkers, we'll talk about them. But if you're going to run him, I usually see people run with power fists because you're running a lightning claw on your berserker champion, and so I mean it's not a bad. I mean it's basically a space marine. He's nothing special there. But he will have a power fist, make him like a combat guy or something.
Okay, so sorry, you're saying that implying that you don't do that, or you think there's a bit of loadout? Sorry.
I've never done it, but I don't think it's a bad loadout.
Okay.
I've seen people do it effectively, and I think it works. If you're going up against an opponent who's going to have a lot of even 2-up save guys, you're really worried about saves. You got to get a lot of high AP, high damage attacks in. That's not a bad place to put a power fist on one of him. And then they have transhuman physiology, which works just like Space Marines. They don't have, and they no show no fear, which is kind of a bummer. But they do have Death to the False Emperor, which every Chaos player has forgot At least it does.
Yeah.
I've been actually better since I've been playing them. I've been remembering it.
Hmm.
For everyone who doesn't know, on a 6 to hit against anyone, any opponent that has the Imperial keyword, they get an extra attack in close combat. It's just one of those extra rules that's nice, but you really easily forget it, especially in the heat of the moment when you're doing stuff. And you're like, oh, a 6 hit. I'm going to keep going because that's
Yeah.
good enough. And it's like,
Yeah.
you got another attack. So yeah, and again, they get marks, but they also can take banners and icons, which aren't bad. But again, I don't know if I would take one there. I think he would just get kind of shot to death, and that'd be the end of him.
Okay. Before we talk about the banners specifically, because they are specific to Chaos, so it makes sense that we talk about them now. Let's go over the special weapon options. So there are 2 options. There's basically a special weapons and a heavy weapons.
Right.
The special are plasma or melter. Is that it? It's just them, isn't it?
Is it flame in there?
Oh, flamer. That makes sense.
Yeah, flamer. Yep.
Okay. So out of those 3, you did mention the flamer already, like as being a possible veteran. What do you think about the specials?
Plasma, I think, is a plasma gunner sniper is probably one of the best loadouts out of that data sheet. And especially in open boards, I frequently run it. It's just overheat them all the time. Reroll 1s. You can give him spend a CP and boost his BS by 1 if you really want to hit someone. And a strength 8 AP3 plasma that does 2 damage is pretty much going to kill anything on the board.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I think we all know how good the plasma is. Yeah.
Right. So I think it's great. The melter gun, I have a personal bias against one-shot weapons.
Sure.
I don't run them in anything I play. I just think between range modifiers and cover, you're just really it goes downhill real fast, and you're going to miss with that one.
Yeah. So like in 40k, if you take a one-shot weapon, you're still normally, well, less so in 9th, but hitting on your base BS. Now, chances are you're going to be hitting on 5s. Best.
Your best case scenario maybe a 4, but yeah. Rarely ever you can hit on a 3 with it.
Yeah. And you've already touched on flamers. I've got to say I was surprised because personally, I see, a cultist and think, oh, I could take a flamer. Why would I ever give it to a marine who, of course, negates the need to hit, which is one of the big advantages of the marine. But you're saying you've had good luck with that.
Yeah, or you could, but you can still take 3 of them. That's the thing. You could take Marine Flamer and still 2 Cultist Flamers. The Marine Flamer, like I said, is just nice for blocking up doors.
Right.
Because even if someone makes it to him, he's got a really good chance of surviving getting shot at or getting assaulted, more so than the Cultist.
Yeah.
Which is kind of why I would prefer the Veteran on him.
Sure.
Because your opponents, if you're blocking the door, they're coming at you. And if the longer you can hold them there in arena, the much more terrible it's going to be for them in the long run.
Wins games, definitely. So, but you wouldn't take that outside of arena then, unless there was a really good choke point, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing I was saying. Like in open, you really don't ever find those really good choke points very frequently. There's usually kind of ways around them, or or they'll stay out of 8-inch range and charge in there. Whereas in arena, you have point blank Overwatch. Yeah. So even if they do that, when they come around the corner, you can still flame them.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So when it comes to the heavies, we have 3 options. Most people forget there's a 3rd option. So you've got the autocannon, which was added with elites. So we'll obviously talk about that. And I think when that was added, most people looked at it and said, oh, that's really good. We've also got the heavy bolter and we have the missile launcher. Now, I assume we all know what the missile launcher is and what the heavy bolter is. But let's have a quick talk about the autocannon versus the heavy bolter. What are your thoughts?
I like the autocannon better. The range is better. I mean, with 48-inch range, it means you're pretty much in half range no matter where they are on the board. And then it 2 higher strength, which means toughness 3 guys, you're wounding on 2s. And it does 2 damage. So I mean, I think it's better than the heavy bolter. And we laughed. I built a heavy bolter guy, and then like a month later, it's like, oh, now you guys have autocannons. Yes. So I drilled out the barrel and just extended it. And I'm like, all right, now it's heavy autocannon.
Hey, it works. It works. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it. I mean, they're the same points. It's just the autocannon killed the heavy bolter. This is the point in taking it.
Yep, no, I agree completely. I'd like to add more. I often see this question come up with people looking into Heretic Astartes. I even had somebody argue that the heavy bolter was the better weapon, and I just didn't know how to begin to tell him he was wrong, so I just didn't respond to him. And that's on me. That's my bad. That's my bad. I'm meant to be helping introduce people into the game, but I think I just said, "Oh yeah, okay, do what you want. That's fine." But yeah, I can't see many valid reasons why I would take the heavy bolter over the autocannon. However, let's talk about our much maligned child, the missile launcher.
Yeah, it falls into category one-shot weapons for me, but I do know several cast players who like it a lot. They kind of use it for like a warrior killer is one of the primary ways I've seen it used, and it's not for me, but I definitely see it's placed there. I just think points-wise, I'd rather put other stuff in there.
Okay, sure, makes sense.
You know, it's the exact same as the Space Marine one, so
Strike and crack, yeah.
On the crack, D3 damage. If it was like flat damage, maybe, but I hate variable damage because I always roll poorly when I need them to.
Sure.
So that's another shot against it. Also, I played against someone with a missile launcher and they were shooting my berserkers and they were sticking 5-up saves, and so it's just like, it just throws it off and they just keep going.
Yeah.
Which is kind of fun to think about.
The other thing to note, of course, is that both the autocannon and the heavy bolter, the reason they're so comparable is because they're both 3 points. So it's just a straight swap. Whereas the missile launcher is 5 points. Suddenly, where am I finding, 2 extra points in my list, sort of thing.
And like I said, the autocannon's also got 12 inches on the heavy bolter, and that's big in Kill Team sometimes.
Oh, sure.
Being able to, like I said, 24 inches is half range for the autocannon.
Definitely, that's a real, you can hit anywhere on the board, pretty much. Yeah. Okay, so I think that's it for Chaos. Oh, we want to talk about the banners, don't we? Just quickly.
Sure. So you have the Khorne one, which I'll talk about a little bit later when we do factions. But it's anyone within 6 inches with the mark of Khorne can reroll charges, which isn't bad. And before Elites came out, it was definitely useful to have in some builds, so you can make sure your guys were getting into combat. The Zinch one,
Zinch is the same as what the Thousand Suns get.
Thousand Suns get, yeah. On a 6, it does mortal.
Yeah.
Sorry, I actually never read. I'd never read it because I just hear about the Khorne ones.
Sure, I'm happy to read them out. I've got them all in front of me. Yeah, so the Nurgle one, you subtract 1 from the leadership characteristic of enemy models within 6 inches of you. The Slaanesh, now this one's interesting. Let me read it out and I'll tell you why it's interesting. The Death to the False Emperor ability of models within 6 inches of any friendly models equipped with an icon of excess takes effect on hit rolls of 5-up rather than 6-up. Now the reason that's interesting is because it costs 5 points, whereas the other banners cost 1 or 3. I don't know who was pointing the banners that day at GW, but they might want to rethink that. And then there's the final one, which is the Icon of Vengeance, which can only be taken if you're not aligned. And that is add 1 to the leadership characteristic of models within 6 inches. Do you have anything you want to say about these outside of the Khorne one? Like any you think have value?
The leadership one probably has value to it because that's one of the Achilles heels of these guys is their leadership. But again, it's only 6 inches, so really how big is that? And then if I was playing against someone with that, I would kill that guy before in turn 1 or 2. So then you really need to turn 3 and 4 and you don't have it anymore. So kind of what's the point about that? Where like the other ones, like the Khorne one's great on turn 1 or 2 when you need it, so you can really get in those charges. The Zinch one's great kind of any turn if it goes off, which it probably won't. And then the Nurgle one again is kind of another one that is really only good in the second half of the game. And I think a smart opponent's going to kill those banner guys early.
Okay.
Just because of that. So I just don't think those two would really take into effect much.
Fair enough. I would say the only positive thing about the leadership ones there is those are the two that are 1 point. If you've got a point and you're absolutely set on this is the list you want, you could consider one. There's no reason not to if you happen to have just a regular Bolter Marine in the list as well.
That's the thing. I don't
No,
think a regular
yeah,
Marine is worth it.
sure,
Yeah, so
sure.
I don't think you
Oh,
will.
yeah, you wouldn't take a Bolter Marine to take one of these. Is I
Right,
think,
exactly.
yeah.
Right.
That's
Put him on the
about
head,
yeah.
but yeah, like I wish you could give him to Cultist would have been nice. I think they
Yes.
would have been a lot better if you could stick a banner on a Cultist.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can't.
Yeah. And so that's it for the Chaos Marines, I think. Who do we go over to next?
Core Berserkers?
Yes, but just a quick note, I suppose. For those of you unaware, when Kill Team released, those were the only two datasheets. Now we're going over to Elites, and in the Elites book is where Chaos Heretic Astartes really opened up into their own faction, I think. So, Khorne
Yeah.
Berserkers, the stars.
Yeah, they were the stars of Elites and kind of the star of the team now. They were a huge boon to that team, Khorne Berserkers. They're basically basic Marine, but they get an extra attack and they're extra strength, so they're toughness 5. And they got the blood for the blood god rule.
Strength 5, T4.
Sorry, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Which means they get to activate twice in the combat phase, which is just really phenomenal. And you can do a lot of crazy and fun things with the faction with that rule. Which
We'll talk about that at the end of this data sheet. Let's talk about what else they do. But yeah, obviously we have to talk about that. Yeah.
Sure. Basic loadout's going to be a chain axe and a chain sword. The chain axe gives you another +1 to strength and is AP -1, 1 damage. So now you got a guy who's strength 6, 2 attacks once, and then 2 attacks twice, and then he gets an extra bonus attack with the chain sword twice. So 6 attacks in a phase for the basic guy. It's just great. Especially when the big thing is they get to consolidate and pile in each time they activate, which is kind of some of the stuff we'll talk about. They have Death to the False Emperor, which is really nice with them. With that many attacks, it's gonna proc a lot more often. The champion I always run a champion, even though I just run one Khorne Berserker because he's cheap, gets you an extra attack, and he gives you access to special combat weapons. So what I usually do is I run a champion as a zealot with a lightning claw, which means on the charge he is strength 6 with 4 attacks with the lightning claw, which just shreds things. Like, he's one of the scariest models on the board. Sometimes I'll run one as a combat specialist for the extra attack, and I'll frequently run one as a veteran against shooting armies where he can just run up the board and tie people up for turn 1. So there's really a lot going on there. They can have the destroyers, which can have plasma pistols. I personally don't think it's worth it. Some people do. But my feeling is I need them charging and killing each turn. I don't know when they're going to have time to shoot a plasma. If they don't kill something that they charge, chances are whatever that is going to walk away, and they're going to get shot. And I'd rather just have the extra attack, especially for the points. The plasma's pretty expensive.
Yeah, I think that when people first looked at the Berserkers, especially the Destroyer, it's a bit of an odd thing that you can do. I assume it's brought over from 40k, where maybe it's more relevant.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are exactly the same. They cost an extra point to take them over a regular Khorne Berserker, and the only option additionally that they get are plasma pistols. And you're limited to 2. I hold the same opinion that you do. There's no point giving any Berserker a pistol. That's not what they're there to do. If for some reason you haven't advanced and therefore would be eligible to shoot on turn 1, of course in turn 2 you'll be charging, so that's irrelevant. that's such a niche scenario to put 3 points on top of them, you know?
And you're talking about if you can shoot, they can shoot you. And honestly,
Yeah.
I think the best smart way to play Corn Berserkers is turn one, you advance and you hide.
Yeah.
You get as much cover and you keep your heads down as possible so they can't shoot at you. I mean, I shoot a range 12 plasma pistol at you. That's probably at long range, and you're probably in cover, and I'm hitting on a 5, and you're shooting something probably better at me.
Yeah.
I just don't think that math works out.
No, definitely not worth it. I agree. Now, Corn Berserkers can take an Icon of Wrath.
Yes, I was going to talk about that. Yeah, and a couple builds we could talk about it. That's not a bad option on them.
Okay.
Because if you're taking a Corn Berserker anyway, which you probably are, you can still make him your combat or your veteran or something, and then they're re-rolling charges. The nice thing about that is we'll talk about sub factions, but everyone gets that re-roll to charge, the Corn Berserkers and the cultists.
Right.
As long as everyone's got the Mark of Corn. So in certain builds, that's not a bad way to go.
Okay. And let's talk about Blood for the Blood God, because that's the basic Corn Berserker data sheet done.
Yeah.
Would you give any credence to the other special weapons you can take with them?
The close combat ones, you mean, or
Yeah, so I know you can take a Power Fist, or you can take other things as well.
Yeah. Lightning Claw is great on the champion. Power Fist is pretty good too. I've put that in a roster because now you're running a Strength 10 Power Fist, which wounds everything on 2s depending on what you're facing. Custodes, Death Guard, and even Lich Guard. So yeah, I like a Power Fist on them. Or the Lightning Claw. I used to run the axe, wasn't bad. I used to run mine as an axe with combat, a power axe. And honestly, I kind of talked to some other Chaos players, and I kind of seen the light. I think the Lightning Claw is superior to the axe,
Okay.
just because of the reroll wounds.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Okay. There is also, I feel like we've already talked about this, about the fact that with a pistol you don't get to shoot. Technically, a Berserker champion can take a bolt gun, a combi bolter, a combi flamer, a combi melter, or a combi plasma.
Yeah, and I know, again, I've seen people take combi flamers.
Sure, because that can still be shot after advancing. Yeah.
Right. But again, you're sticking your head out for that, and they're like, in case someone charges them. I don't know many people who are crazy enough to charge a Corn Berserker champion. And if they are, chances are they can survive the flamer shot. Something with like a 2-up save or high toughness or something. So yeah, I've seen it. I think it's a possible way to go. It's just not for me.
Sure.
I don't think it's an absolute terrible decision. But
a lot of points investments on a single model that still, if you fluff, could just
still toughness 4, 1 wound, 3-up save.
It's still just a regular mini marine.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't get our second wound yet.
Exactly.
Hopefully soon. Hopefully next year we get our second wound.
Nexus Pariah. It's a whole new kill team. That's what I've decided. Okay. So, do you want to talk us through Blood for the Blood God? For anybody that missed it the first time, Blood for the Blood God is relatively simple. It allows you to fight again. Do you want to now go into the hour-long speech that we have to go into to describe just everything you can do in this?
Astartes.
Okay.
So it's a simple rule that is incredibly complicated and nuanced, and if you can, the best Heretic Astartes players figure that out. Micromancer is a player who runs on a lot of TTSs, and he is probably one of the best at that. If you can ever watch him play his Heretic Astartes, if he's streaming it, absolutely watch that game. You'll learn a lot. So you basically have to look at a Corn Berserker in combat as 2 different models that activate twice. So that means you can consolidate, you attack, you can pile in, and then you can do it again. If he charged, both of those happen in the Hammer of Wrath phase. If he didn't, they'll happen normal combat. So again, if a Corn Berserker charges you, he's going to wail on you twice before you get to swing once. And that's pretty effective. Also, if you charge a Corn Berserker and he kills you, he can do all sorts of crazy stuff. So if a Corn Berserker charges you, the smart player will leave a little bit of gap between the Corn Berserker and his opponent. So then he gets to consolidate. He gets to consolidate 3 inches. So usually what you'll do is you'll wrap around your opponent to get closer to other guys, and then you base him. You attack. Hopefully, if you can kill him, now you get to pile in 3 inches towards the closest enemy, and then you can blood for the blood god, another 3 inches consolidation. Now you can't attack that guy, but let's say if it's a guardsman with a plasma gun, now that guy's gonna have to run away from you next turn, and they're gonna have to use an order or something special in order to get that guy back in the fight that they're not gonna be able to use someplace else. And then he'd be done. Now, if you charge a Corn Berserker, or you're left in combat from a previous turn for some reason, and he kills you, so he'll consolidate 3 inches, hopefully kill you, pile in 3 inches, consolidate another 3 inches. If they're within an inch of that guy, a new guy, they get to fight him, and maybe if they kill him, they can pile in another 3 inches. So you're just talking about 6-inch move in the fight phase.
Interrupted with a bit of fighting in between.
Right. With killing your models, which is just not great either with all those attacks. So they can really move around fast and really get into your grill. And again, bringing back into the cultists are great because, one, you can throw them in before a Corn Berserker attacks. Before a Corn Berserker charges to soak up any kind of Overwatch that you might be worried about. But also they can help you with charge cycling because you're not going to have a ton of Corn Berserkers. So if my Corn Berserker somehow didn't kill a guy last round, or let's say he consolidated last round into a new guy, and I don't want him running away, I can charge in a cultist, and now that guy can't fall back. So then they're stuck. So then you get to do that whole Blood for the Blood God moving 6 inches shenanigans with that one model.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of nuance there. You can also charge a guy in such a way that you're in cover. So if he attacks first, let's say he decisive strikes, he's at a -1, and then you can move around that cover when you consolidate or when you blood for the blood god, even if it takes you all that time, and now you're not hitting with the -1 anymore. That works really great in like arena where you can have corners and stuff.
Right.
So it is really nuanced, and if you want to be good with the team, you really need to think those through. Like when you place that guy after the charge, you need to know exactly why you want to place him there, how you're going to consolidate, how you're going to pile in, and how you're going to blood for the blood god when you're doing that placement. And if you're not playing them to the fullest.
Okay. So a few questions in that case, if I may pose them to you so that we can all fully understand this. I think we get the basics. It's not just you get to attack twice. You're not just making double your number of attacks. The fight sequence is something you get to make again, not just the actual rolling of the dice.
Right.
So because of that,
which brings to another point. Because of that, if you attack and flesh wound somebody, you get to attack them again, and they're already flesh wounded. Whereas if it was double attacks, it would still only be one flesh wound roll.
Yes. So, what exactly am I asking here? Right, you've charged in. You're fighting in the Hammer of Wrath phase, so you're fighting first. You get to make both of your attacks in Hammer of Wrath before going into everybody else gets to fight for your life phase. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Now, further to that, you've charged in. What if... I don't know what I'm asking. There was another question. Allow me to pivot. The Fury of Khorne tactic. Are you aware? Yeah?
Yep.
So, for those that don't know, use this tactic at the end of the fight phase. Pick a Khorne model from your kill team that is within 1 inch of an enemy model. Your model can immediately fight again. How does that interact with the Blood for the Blood God?
So, it doesn't, but it does basically a similar thing. Because now, you can consolidate again, attack, and pile in again. So you just added, another 6 inches to what you've... you've added another 6 inches to the 12 inches you've already moved across the board.
Okay.
But you can only attack once. You don't get to Blood for the Blood God twice.
Okay, right. So this would give you 3 attacks. or 3 attack phases,
Yes.
sequences.
Right.
In okay, all right. That
Not
was
4.
I didn't know if it might have triggered Blood for the Blood God again, or
No.
something else. It gets very confusing, and I haven't written any of these questions down. So
Yeah.
yes, if anybody has any questions specifically about Blood for the Blood God or Berserkers, please ask, because I think that covers everything when it comes to how the hell do Berserkers work, but it can be a little bit confusing, especially the first times you're using it.
Yeah.
Okay, there was definitely one other I wanted to ask, but I've forgotten, so that's fine. Let's pile on.
Was it with the decisive strike?
No, but tell us about that.
That's also something that sometimes confuses people. If I charge with my Corn Berserker, and
Yep.
let's say you charge in after that, I can decisive strike to do one of my rounds of attacks.
Yep. Okay.
And then you would go, and then I would go, kind of thing.
Sure,
Similarly,
because Blood for the Blood God is you pick it a second time, isn't it?
Right.
So you're not just double attacking. Yeah.
Right. You got to look at the Corn Berserker as a second model
Okay.
that did whatever that Corn Berserker did. So either you got charged or did charge or stood still. It's just a second model that did the same thing.
Okay.
That's
So if your Berserker charged and then somebody else charged him, he would attack whoever first, then the other person would get to pick their attack, then you would attack again if you're not dead. Sure.
Or I could decisive strike, do my one round of attack, then it's my first turn to pick, so then I do my second round of attack if I really wanted to make sure I killed that guy who charged me first.
Okay. Makes sense. I think that's Corn Berserker's done.
Oh, and then there's one more, of course, is the combat tactic, up and at them. Mm-hmm. Depending on your packet, some packets allow that tactic to be used even if the model is not in close combat. So now you have a combat Corn Berserker that, let's say, is 2 inches away from an enemy, failed to charge, maybe he advanced. So now he gets to pile in, attack, and then in the fight for your life phase is when he would make that second round of attacks because he does not count as charging.
Right, so the question I wanted to ask, I think you've already answered. Oh, but to clarify, what you just said there is one of those weird rule nuances, so check with the TO first.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I believe you've answered, but let's just double check, you know? So I want to know how Blood for the Blood God interacts with charging. So you have charged a model. You can kill this model. You kill it. It's gone. You go into the next model. You haven't charged the next model. So even though you Blood for the Blood God, you cannot attack it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So exactly as you said.
Some POs rule that differently.
Okay.
Saying that you can, but rules as written, you cannot attack that model. So really, you're just doing it to tie him up, maybe.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay.
You have to, and if you declare that second model as a
target of your charge.
Yeah, target of your charge. You didn't make it. You still can't pile into attack. You have to be able to make it to that guy in order to attack him in the assault in the
fight phase.
In the combat phase. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think what you said there is a way I haven't heard it put before, but it's I think that makes things a lot clearer. Assume that your Blood for the Blood God is a second model.
Right.
That's done exactly what the previous model has done.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. That certainly makes it clearer for me as I start to build my Heretic Astartes list. So, is it Possessed next? Or do you have Terminators?
Sure. Possessed.
Okay.
I don't like them personally. Yeah. They take up space for Corn Berserkers. They're a lot of points. Yeah, they have an invulnerable save, but it's still only a 5 up.
Yeah.
They have 2 wounds, but I think a lot of people are using multi-damage weapons. And in the end, they only have a 3 up armor save. They can't get special weapons. If they, they're a little bit quicker, but only by an inch.
Sure.
If they change rules for where, charging is D6 plus move, then that'd be different. But with 2D6, they're the same, an extra inch. I just don't think they're worth it. And yeah, especially because you can't give us, so there's no champion with a lightning claw or something else in there. So I'd rather just have a berserker, and the berserkers still get to attack twice. The possessed can't, so they're not really matching
Yeah.
with the damage. Yeah, because they're yeah, I mean their attacks are -2 AP, which is an extra AP, but again, I think they only do D3 attacks. So again, now you could have one attack from the guy.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right. So
Yeah. Yeah. They are a pick if for some reason you do not want to interact with the corn keyword at all, I guess.
yeah,
But I'm not sure why
exactly.
you're doing that, I guess.
Right.
Unless you've done something with your sub factions, maybe.
Yeah, maybe you're doing like Emperor's Children,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they're just a poor alternative, and they're 4 more points than a Corn Berserker.
Yes. Yeah. And the 5-up invuln, although nice, and 2 wounds is survivable. Yeah, there are some matches that don't really care that you're a 5-up invuln and 2 wounds, but equally, if you hit that matchup, or even a matchup that they are perfect for, normally, if they're good for it, so are the Corn Berserkers. You know?
Yeah,
So you're getting really niche when you're trying to say that a possessed is a good model, I think.
there's very few 1 damage high AP weapons out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Although leadership 8,
yeah,
which is still not a reason to take them.
no.
I don't think we have much else to say about them, really.
Corn Berserker can't use leadership 8, so yeah, it's the same thing.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah. True. Right. Fair. Um, the only real reason I could think of taking them is if you want to go into commanders and you really want to make like an all demon team. The possessed obviously pairs with the greater possessed for
Yeah,
buffs and
or the
stuff.
mass possession. Yeah,
Yeah. That's about it.
right.
Which is a real shame thematically, but from a physical perspective, the models for possessed are terrible. So don't buy them. All right, cool.
Convert it. That's what I
Yeah,
did.
yeah. Or buy the Galvorbok.
Yeah.
From Forge World.
Yep.
Forge World. Yeah, that's where we're buying them from. Sure. And they're actually really nice models. So,
Yes.
I think that's all we have to say about the possessed, really, isn't it?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Which takes us to our final data sheet. Unless I
Terminators.
missed one. Terminators. Yes. Take it away.
Yeah, they're nice. They're basically a Space Marine Terminator, but they have a lot of utility and a lot of different things they use. I like to take a double Lightning Claw one in Arena. You give him the mark of Nurgle. The reason you do that is there's a 1-point tactic that lets you increase his toughness by 1 to 5. And so then he becomes another great door stopper. Scary things like flayed ones can't touch him. Between the 2-up save and he's got 2 wounds, anything that doesn't have a lot of attacks, he's just going to laugh at them and they're just going to flail at him, which really makes them great. And they can have some really nice shooting options too. Autocannons, heavy flamers, combi weapons, all of that stuff. So it's not something I put in the list normally.
Mm.
It is definitely something I put in my roster as kind of a nice thing to have in my toolbox just in case I need them. Like in Arena, if you're playing someone who's doing spam, gaunt spam, cult of spam, any kind of spamming list, they're monsters because they just can't hurt them.
Yeah, I think Terminators, Chaos Terminators specifically, are one of the most viable Terminators in a regular list.
Yeah.
Because they start at base 25 points, which is the cheapest of all the Terminators, and there's no reason for that. They still have the 5-up, 2-up, just like a regular Space Marine Terminator. Yeah.
Can't get a Storm Shield, but you can't have everything, right?
It's true. It's true. I don't. I'm not sure I've ever seen a Terminator run with a Storm Shield. I'm sure somebody's done it.
Yeah, I've seen them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, would you generally run them as long range or short range, or?
Depends what you want to put them on. I mean, you could theoretically build a list, and we can talk about that later, where
Okay.
you can put autocannons, you can put Kami Plasmas Ice on it, you can put Kami Flamers. So they could be really nice long and short range guys.
Okay. Yeah. I think they have the same issue that all Terminators have, but to a lesser degree. So
Yeah.
they're very expensive for what they are, but these are the best of the Terminators. Kind of.
And again, you know, you're going to have cultists running around your Terminators too. So it's not like, you know, you can get a cultist into a last cannon or something big that's, or, you know, a plasma rifle that's lining up a shot on your Terminator. That guy's made his points back by saving that dude's life. So, I mean, that's what you use them for.
Sure.
You know, so that's an advantage nobody else has really that can run Terminators except for, you know, Death Guard and to a lesser extent Thousand Suns. But like their Marine counterparts don't have any fodder that they can run with their Terminators. So they're running expensive Marines and now a really expensive Terminator, which really limits their options to how many models they're going to have on that field.
Okay. I think we're done with the data sheets. Is that
I think that's
all good
it.
for you? Okay. Should we jump over to the sub-factions?
Sure.
So, just very quickly, some people might be confused about how sub-factions interact with the Mark of Chaos style keywords we've given. For example, certainly when I first read it, I was a touch confused. I thought if you had a Khorne Berserker, it has to be a Khorne, that's fine, it states that. But therefore, if you wanted to run a Khorne Berserker, you could only ever run World Eaters. But that's not the case, is it?
Nope.
No. So you could say that they are Alpha Legion. It's just an Alpha Legion with a Khorne Berserker keyword. The only thing that you are restricted on in that regard is called out specifically because of the Emperor's Children, where you have to have Slanesh.
Right.
And
it has to be Khorne.
Yes, exactly. And Chaos Cultists never get this sub-faction bonus.
Right, and that's a big negative in there.
Yes.
Especially when it comes to some of these other sub-factions, which I don't think it makes them as viable.
Sure.
And we'll definitely talk about that.
Sure. So we'll just kind of do a top 3 sub-factions. We don't have to go over all of them. And I'm gonna call out Renegade chapters.
Absolutely.
So I think this is because Berserkers are so good, you can always run them as this, and there's no reason not to, really. You just get to reroll charges. There you go.
Right.
Very simple.
It's not even failed charges, it's just charges in general.
Yes.
Which is a big thing to note there.
And note that this is, in fact, the same ability that you get if you give your Berserkers a banner. So the banner costs 5 points, and is a 6-inch radius. Reroll charges on Khorne models. Whereas this is just everybody rerolls charges. There you go.
Right. The only advantage, again, like I said, the banner has is that it works for cultists. Because cultists can't be in a chapter, they can't reroll charges.
Sure.
And sometimes when you're, like you said, you're trying to soak and overwatch for something or just tie someone up, it's nice to have a cultist that can reroll his charge.
Yes. Okay.
But I think Renegade's hands down is the best one. It also lets you take any mark on all the rest of the guys in your team. And we can definitely talk about that when we talk about, you know, tactics and stuff.
Yeah.
Why that's important. Like I was mentioning, the Nurgle Terminator, you can do that in Renegades. You couldn't do that in, let's say, World Eaters.
Sure. Do you want to give your 2 best sub-factions? Or I know I stole the best one, but
Did.
Yeah.
World Eaters isn't bad. +1 attack on the already Khorne Berserkers means it's really +2 attacks with Blood for the Blood God.
Right.
It's kind of overkill, but it's not bad if you're going to couple it with someone with a banner to give you that reroll charge. Because again, you're going to have a Khorne Berserker. It's easy just to throw a banner on him. He's going to be up there with him with his buddies, and everyone can have that 6-inch charge reroll. But again, Renegades is better, but it is nice to have that, and it limits you for what your cultist and any other units in your team can all have to have the Mark of Khorne, which is definitely very limiting, especially with the tactics that came out in the annual.
Right.
And then the next one I would probably put down is Iron Warriors. They don't suffer the penalty to injury rolls with people that are obscured. which is really nice. I mean, that's a big tactic in Kill Team in general, is that if you're getting shot at, you want to hug terrain, because going from a 4 up to a 5 up is a huge difference. Injury rolls, and being able to ignore that's really nice if you're going to put together a shooty team.
Fair enough. And I think we won't go into all of them, but I think we can call out, as usual, the Alpha Legion kind of suck.
Yes, absolutely.
We wish they didn't. We wish this rule was better, but you see this popping up as like a default thing in all of the kill teams, and it's just not good. Which, for those of you unaware, this is the standard. Models over 12 inches are obscured.
Chances are they're going to be obscured anyway if they're over 12.
If you're 12 inches away, you're obscured.
Right.
So,
and it doesn't work on cultists.
Yeah.
Which, you know...
So you can't just swarm 20 forwards in the open or something.
Right, which would be great. Or something, or give them a +1 when they're obscured or something. But yeah. It's terrible. I think it's a lot of people coming over from 40k.
Yes.
Because Alpha Legion is the best Legion in big 40k. Because of a lot of the stuff they do. It's just terrible here.
Did the cultists get it in 40k? They do, don't they?
I think they do. I want to say they do.
I seem to recall in 8th they did, because that was a tactic. You would always take cultists as Alpha Legion because they get this.
Right.
One other thing to note, just in case anybody's new to this, even though over 12 inches you are obscured, you are not within 1 inch of terrain, so you aren't getting a bonus to your injury roll. You're just -1 to hit. So
if you're 12 inches away from your opponent, I really hope you're in cover.
Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, you need to have a discussion about your board.
Your tactics, yeah.
Yeah. But aside from Alpha Legion, I actually think that all of the Chaos sub-factions aren't terrible. Like, some of them are better than others, if you're looking at it from a competitive sense. But if you really want to play Emperor's Children, that's not bad.
Yeah.
You know?
And like we were saying, if you run it, there's a reason to run Possessed heavy. Since you can't take Corn Berserkers and Emperor's Children, you can run Possessed with Emperor's Children, and they're not bad there. And some of the Space Marine Champion with a Power Fist or Power Weapon isn't bad there either. But again, you're going to be limited to the marks your other units can take. So that might be a problem. Night Lords, isn't bad, but again, it's only on the Marines. If I could do it on the Cultists, it'd be great. You swarm the Cultists, and then you start inflicting flesh wounds on everybody, and now they're testing at -4. But yeah.
So when it comes to tactics, do you have any favourites that you really want to call out?
Yeah, there's a couple of them. We talked about the Wrath of Khorne is a great one.
Yeah. Would you say that's kind of the main one that everyone needs to keep in mind, or?
Yes and no. It's just really expensive. It's 2 CP. And in a normal game of Kill Team, I find I don't have the 2 CP for it. I've used it someplace else, especially at the end of the turn. You have to have 2 CPs at the end of the phase. So, by then I probably use it on an injury roll, or maybe on a save for one of my guys. I find I usually don't have those 2 CP by the end of, because it's at the end of the whole turn. Or maybe I'm saving a CP so someone passes a nerve check or something. Yeah. So it's definitely nice. It's good to remember. But yeah, I never usually have the CP for it.
Fair enough. I'm going to call out. Just so everyone's aware, when it comes to we're talking about in the list building stage. I was going to say marks of Khorne, which ones to use, and one of the main things to think about is tactics you want to use. But yeah, we're getting into that. I'm going to call out an issue with tactics in general for the Chaos Space Marines. They're not great. Compared to, I don't think they have a good section or selection of tactics. I think that you'll normally find similar tactics in other factions for 1 CP, whereas almost all of Heretic Astartes' good tactics are 2 CP. Same thing, and it's just, why am I spending more for this? I genuinely don't know. But the tactic I'm going to call out is a bit of a memey one. I don't think people use this in competitive games, but I think it's awesome. Beseech the Gods. Now it's 2 CP. It's right at the start of the game. Pick a model from your kill team and roll a d6. On a 1, that model is found unworthy and suffers d3 mortal wounds. That's why people don't use it in competitive games. On a 2+, add 1 to hit and wound rolls for the model until the end of the battle. You can only use it once.
Right.
I just think that's quite fun. There you go. I just think it's fun. Yeah.
Yeah. All the cast factions have it.
Yes.
Again, it's hard when you only have 2 CPs to start with 0.
Sure.
That means you're not veteran moving, you're not putting someone in reserve, and then the mortal wounds is tough. I've seen it used mostly with Death Guard, and it's very good with Death Guard.
Okay.
Because they have, you have to roll the 1, then you roll the 3, then they get feel no pains off of that, so they can even engage in there.
Nice.
And people will give it to their blight launcher guys, so he's hitting on 2s, wounding everyone on 2s.
Very nice.
And he's real scary.
That sounds much better than using it on anyone here. However, if I had to use it on somebody, my instinct is I want to put it on, completely buff up the Berserker champion, but I just wouldn't want to risk losing him. You might as well end the game. So my choice would be your either Plasma Sniper or your heavy autocannon guy. Yeah. So you're getting use out of that every Yeah.
+1 to hit all game, wounding on 2s, everything on the table is great.
Definitely. Okay. And your other go-to tactic?
So I would do Endless Cacophony.
Yep.
That is 2 CPs. If the model's got a Marker Slanesh, they get to shoot again. This doesn't happen at the end. It happens when it's your turn to pick another model. And that's just really great. This is why you want to take Renegades as opposed to World Eaters, because anybody who shoots, you give them the Marker Slanesh. So my Plasma Sniper, my Heavy Autocannon, my Cultist with Flamers, because it's not just limited to Space Marines, it's anybody. In a pinch, you can have them shoot again, which is really nice.
Yes. And as we say, both of those tactics where you get to attack again, essentially, whether it's ranged or melee, are firstly 2 CP, which sucks, but also opposite keywords, Slanesh and Khorne. So you won't have one of them doing the same thing. But okay, were there any other? So I'm happy to do my 3 tactics. We move on. Is there anything else you want to call out specifically?
I would say the other 2 chaos ones, the marked ones. So the Nurgle one I mentioned is +1 toughness.
Okay.
I think it's great on a Terminator. Just makes toughness 5 Terminator. And the other one is the Zinch one that gives you a 5+ invul save. This is really nice on cultists. Basically, if my cultist doesn't have a flamer, they have this. And now you have a cultist with a 5+ invul save, which I've seen them stand up to a Custodes and just laugh as the Custodes is stuck in combat with this one stupid cultist making all these 5+ invul saves.
Yes.
So it's a nice tactic. Everything else really falls into just, it's good. It's not good enough for the amount of CPs you're going to have to pay for it.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, everything's like 2 or 3 CPs, and it's just, it's sad because there's a lot of interesting stuff in it.
I would say when it comes to Blessed with Resilience, that's the Nurgle 1 CP, add 1 to the toughness characteristic of this model till the end of the battle round. When I envision myself using that the most is, of course, when you know you're going to get hit a lot, right? So in Arena, you might say, okay, I'm putting my Terminator, for example, in this doorway. I know you have to go through him, +1 to toughness. That's a really big change going from 4 to 5. But I would also recommend, if you know you have to charge, let's say, a Flamer, and you're pretty damn sure that they're going to be overwatching, with just a regular Marine, going from straight for T4 to T5, and having your 3+ save means you're practically immune to the Flamer. Like, you can, if I have a T5 model with a 3+ save, I will charge a Flamer, and know I'll get overwatched, and I'm okay with it.
The only problem with that is who's this guy you're talking about? Because if it's not a Khorne Berserker, because they got a marker Khorne.
Yes.
And if it's the um,
Aspiring champion.
aspiring champion, well, that means you didn't give him the mark of corn,
No.
which means he can't double attack, which is a trade-off there. I think that's nice.
Mm.
And you're probably more likely to use that than the double attack, since the +1 toughness is only 1 CP.
Yeah.
But it is something to keep in mind that if you go more defensive with him, he's not going to be able to attack twice.
Yes. No, very good point. I had just been thinking more conceptually, when would
Right.
I buff somebody, then I have taken this unit to do it with. But yeah, you're right. Yeah. I don't know
And,
when I would have that model. Yeah.
and again, the Nurgle and the Zinch tactics are reasons against taking World Leaders or Emperor's Children, because you can't take either one of those. You can't have guys with other marks in those teams. So it
Right.
is kind of a bummer not be able to, the Emperor's Children and the World Leaders can't have flat up Bimbo cultists running around.
Sure. Shall we jump over to the first list you've got? Hello?
You there?
Yep. Are you there?
Sorry. Yeah, I froze for
Okay.
a second. I don't know.
All right.
Sorry
No.
about that. All right.
Over to the first list.
Sure.
Okay. It's up. I
Yep.
can't read it, but I'm sure it's good. Do you want to run us through? So, for those of you watching, beginners, this is going to be kind of the end of the beginner section as we go through an actual list and tell you why you've taken this and how you could possibly modify it to fit your own tastes. But if you just want to get it started with Heretic Astartes, look at this list. This is a really good list to get you off your feet. You can see what are good picks, what aren't, and then modify it how you want. Do you want to run us through what this is and why you've taken it?
Sure. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Is this kind of gives you a taste of a lot of different units, and nothing's bad in this list. So it's stuff that even if you don't really favor your play style, you can just keep them in your toolbox and leave them on your roster, but maybe not put them actually in your team. So, of course, it's obligatory leader, cultist champion, Mark of Zinch. Like I said, that's great. If you get in a pinch, you think someone's going to shoot him up, give him that 5-up invul save, maybe he can survive it. Then you can see the Berserker champion with the Chainsaw and Lightning Claw. And again, they're renegades. He's a zealot. So he's 4 attacks, strength 6 with the Lightning Claw. And then for fun, he gets that second edge swing with the Chainsword, that extra swing, and he attacks twice. The Plasma Sniper, Marcus Lanesh. So he's rerolling the one, so you can always overheat. You don't have to worry about dying. And he gets to shoot twice. Then below that is the Corn Berserker with Veteran. And again, the tactic there is veteran run him up, and then try to tie up some guys. I played a Tau player yesterday, and that's what I did. I got him into a rail rifle and his recon drone. And so the rail rifle retreated, so he didn't get to shoot, and the recon drone I killed. So that was really a nice start to that game. Then you have 5 basic cultists, again, all with the mark of Zinch. And again, they're just going to run around, soak, overwatch, hold objectives, just be relatively annoying and cheap to your opponent. Then you have the heavy stubber. Again, the Marcus Lanesh, honestly, I've never used the Marcus Lanesh on him. It's kind of a waste. He's usually hitting on 5s or 6s just because of cover and stuff. But again, you park him on the objective in your deployment zone, and he just takes pot shots all day. And it's pretty, people are scared of him because it is strength 4. And then you have the cultist with a flamer, again, Marcus Lanesh. Advance him up, get him in good positions, tie down lanes, cover people, kind of thing like that. And of course, he can shoot twice, which is nice, depending on what you're playing. And then just 2 more basic Corn Berserkers with chain axes and chain swords. Some people like to run with bolt pistols. I think that runs into the same problem with the plasma pistols, is that you're advancing or charging with this guy all the time. So I don't think he gets a chance to shoot with that pistol all that often. And if you think about it, the pistol gets to shoot once a turn. The chain axe can fight twice a turn. So, but yeah, so that's just a good basic core list of people just looking to start with them and kind of just get a feel of what you like and what you don't like about the faction.
And you want to very quickly explain why you've given the different marks of chaos there?
Yeah. So, like we were saying with the tactics, anyone with the mark of Zinch can get a 5-up invul save. Anyone with the mark of Slaanesh can shoot twice. So, as you can see, anybody with a decent gun is shooting twice. Your cultist and your leader, who you just really kind of want to survive, you can throw in that 5+ invul save for 1 CP.
And because there's no banner there, which is the only reason you'd really kind of specifically want to take anything as anything else, to get an aura buff,
Right.
there's no conflict between taking Zinch and Khorne and stuff, is there?
Right. Exactly.
Excellent. Okay. I'm learning a lot. That's all
Yeah,
I'm
and,
going to say.
again, it's why Renegades is so good, is
Yeah.
because they are an undivided sub-faction. So I can do that where I couldn't take that in a World Eater or an Emperor's Children sub-faction. The tactics that came out in the annual that were very God specific really cemented Renegades, I think.
Right.
Whereas you're kind of like, maybe I can do World Eaters with the banner.
Yeah.
But once all of those more specific tactics came out, you really want to stick to the undivided ones.
Sure. Would you ever consider perhaps not taking the shooty guys? Or do you think they're core to a list?
Yeah. Against the Tau, I ran 3 Khorne Berserker specialists. I did my Zealot, the Veteran, and a combat guy. Because I just knew they were going to outshoot my shooters, so what's the point?
Okay.
If I think that's the case. Or if we're doing Arena, depending on what faction I'm fighting, I'll do more assault-oriented. But again, in my roster, yeah, I can go either way. Or I can do more cultist heavy. That's the advantage of them. Whereas even Space Marines don't even have that, where if they want to do assault, they're going to have to do a specific chapter, and then they're going to have specific guys for that. And if they want to do shooting, they're going to have a completely different chapter. Whereas they don't really have specialist guys the way Chaos does, which is a big advantage, I think.
Sure. Okay, quick shout to the chat. If you have any questions, now's a perfect time to ask, because we're kind of wrapping up the beginner section. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about this list specifically?
No, just, movement and placing your models is very key. Whether it's the cultists or the Khorne Berserkers, you just want to really be lining up charges and knowing who's going where and when, kind of thing.
Okay, awesome. So I think that's kind of us done when it comes to the absolute basics of Heretic Astartes. This is a great list to take. It's steering you in the right direction. We've gone over the best sub-factions, the go-to tactics, all of the data sheets, and even a little bit, because we had to, on movement even, because of Blood for the Blood God. So I think it's been a really solid, this is how to play the faction. And hopefully you're seeing that, oddly, even though they don't get as many as we said at the start, even though they don't get as many choices as Space Marines when it comes to raw data sheets, they have a very interesting flexibility to them, despite not having as many options.
Yeah, I think because those options are so different from each other. Where a lot of the Marine ones are basically all Marines, or they're Primus Marines. The other thing I actually wanted to just remember to mention is never be afraid to sacrifice a cultist. That's what they're there for. I was playing a game against a Thunderhammer Terminator with Storm Shield, and I knew it would kill anybody. I just kept feeding him cultists. And so he killed 2 or 3 cultists in the course of a game. Yeah. And
great.
Points a model for a 40-point model, which is what you want them to be doing.
Yes. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so let's move on to, I guess now we've got to talk a little bit about commanders, because normally we would say how does a commander fit into them as part of the kind of the basics. So let's do that, and we do have a question in chat. He's just trying, what about the demon keyword plus GT possessed? GT, greater, possessed in Kill Team. Do you have any experience with... I mean, we actually mentioned that very briefly, as that's the thing you could do.
Right, but again, that's commanders. Yeah. Again, I think you're trying too hard to make something work that doesn't really work very well out of the gate. and I think there are other commander options that are better than the Greater Possessed, and you're really only taking the Greater Possessed to make the Possessed work.
Yes.
And for me, it's just too much in there. I'd rather take other stuff.
Sure. So I think if you want to just run Greater Possessed and 6 Possessed, you can do that. Like that's the list. It's very simple. I think the big issue is the reason you would take a Greater Possessed is, of course, you want to maximize the amount of buffs he gives, which then makes sense that you would take the Possessed so that his aura buff does things. But his aura buff isn't actually that great. Like, just on its own. So, for those of you unaware, as long as this model is not shaken, add 1 to the strength characteristics of friendly demon models within 6 inches of this model. And that's it. So, it's just +1 strength. And it's only within 6 inches, so it's not like board wide. You're not going to have that many possessed next to him. You've got to be holding objectives with those other 6 possessed. So...
And you're burning a CP every turn to do it.
Yeah.
It's a tactic. It's not a free one.
It is, yes. So, and outside of that locus of power, his 1 CP tactic that buffs them, yes, he's good at killing stuff, but not so great at killing stuff that I feel he's an auto take. Is it still only strength 5, AP minus 2, damage D3, but yeah.
Especially how expensive he is. He's pricing.
Yeah, he doesn't stand out to me as being an amazing model, and I think if you're running then a slightly better list, you'd run him and maybe 2 possessed, right? And then have cultists on the rest of the objectives. But at that point, I just don't really... With only 2 possessed on the board, I would rather those be 2 berserkers, basically, at that point. And then you're back to the same issue of why am I running possessed?
Right.
Okay. However, with that said, did you have kind of a favoured commander that you wanted to quickly shout out? We don't have to go through all of the commanders.
I like 2.
Okay.
I like the Exalted Champion.
Yep.
I just think he's nice and cheap. He's, just to give you a comparison, the Greater possesses 80 points. This guy's only 30.
Yeah.
Like, it's a huge difference. Like, if you're doing commanders, a Greater possesses almost half your list if he's only level 1. I like him if he's going basic commanders that let you go up to level 3. I'll take him as a strategy guy and just turn him into a CP farm. The commanders packet you put out only puts him at level 1. Yeah. Probably would still do strategist for that extra just 1 CP instead of 2.
Okay.
And you can give him a power axe and a power sword or whatever. And he's not bad in combat either. So I think he's pretty good. And his tactics, his aura ability is really nice, especially coupled with Corn Berserkers, where you get to reroll 1s to wound. You get to reroll 1s of wound within 6 inches, which with like the damage output of a Corn Berserker is pretty nice.
Yeah.
I think you're going to use that a lot. Oh, and it works for shooting too, which is nice. So if your plasma gun flubs a roll, you can reroll the ones.
Mm. Okay.
And then the other one I'd put in is the sorcerer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it's nice to have some psychics in there, depending on what team you're playing against.
Yes.
And his powers are good. Death Hex, get rid of an invul saves on somebody. So someone's walking around with a storm shield, or you have something like Harlequins.
Right.
You can just ignore their invulnerable saves for a turn, which is really kind of devastating to some of those units.
Yes. Okay.
Or,
Damn, I was going to point to the same 2 as well. For basically the same reasons, I've got to say, the Exalted Champion is a steal at 30 points. Yeah. And you can put good weapons on him to the point that you... Well, I don't know, I kind of like him with a power axe, to be honest. So he's 35 points. Fine, I'll take that. And then chuck in 4 more berserkers. Yeah. Sounds amazing. And they could be his little honor guard running around the board using his Aspire to Glory tactic. Great. He really is, to my mind, start with him. He he works very naturally, intuitively is a better word, with lists that we're already talking about. And then, yeah, Sorcerer, Psychic, that's always good to have in a list. Now, the Sorcerer is 65 points, so it's obviously a very different proposition to the super cheap Exalted champion there. But, yeah. Yeah. To be honest, I don't know huge amounts about the rest of them to really say this is when you would take this is when you take that. But there are other options to me. They don't seem as viable as all I can kind of say off the top of my head. But I'm sure there's things there.
Yeah. I mean, they're not bad. Like the Master of Executions, though, but he's 71 points again. You know?
Yeah.
I feel like with the Corn Berserkers, you have enough close combat in there. You don't really need him. And the Dark Apostle, if you want some extra cheap cultists that don't have any guns.
Yeah. The Master of Possession at 68 points is only a little bit more expensive than the Sorcerer. If his psychic powers didn't all involve only affecting the demon keyword, he'd be really good. I think he'd be really interesting. But because he's limited to only your possessed, there's still no reason to take a possessed, basically.
Well, that's why I like that Commander's packet that they threw in with demons.
Yes, I think he makes a lot more sense there. Yeah. And then you've got the two Terminator armor guys, the Chaos Lord and the Sorcerer. To my mind, the Sorcerer in Terminator armor doesn't really make sense because you're taking him for your psychic powers. He's just costing you more points for a 2-up save and a 5-up invuln. Your Sorcerer's probably not going to be taking advantage of those as much as he probably should be for the points. And Chaos Lord in Terminator armor, he does get a 4-up invuln. You know, I'll note that. That's nice.
50 more points in the Exalted, though.
Yeah.
What, 3 Corn Berserkers?
Yeah.
Almost?
And your aura ability is just reroll hit rolls of 1 in 6 inches.
Right.
So, yeah. So, I really do think the standouts are your two kind of basic guys there, the Sorcerer and the Exalted Champion. Yeah. Start with them. If you decide you want to try something else, look out for those. But also, I like that they're so cheap and they just slot so easily into the lists we're about to talk about because, yeah, they're just natural choices.
Yeah.
I feel. Let's quickly look at what people have been saying whilst I've been nattering on. Key takeaways for Terminators, because he missed it. They're the best Terminators. That doesn't mean they're good. There you go. They have key situations. If you want to block something, they are probably the best things to take in the game because they are cheap Terminators, which is inherently good. And because you have the points to take Chaos Cultists as opposed to needing to cram it filled with Primaris Marines or something, you can make up for the weaknesses of Terminator armor. But that still doesn't mean they're the best option. Blah. You can probably take one on the roster, though. Like, if you've got space, chuck one in.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah, it's not something I normally put in the list, but I definitely put him on the roster. He's not on the team frequently, but he's definitely on the roster.
Is it possible to mix Chaos Demons and Heretic Astartes, though? No, Jimmy, it's not. At least not in the Battleforge army, which is what everybody plays in Kill Team. I assume you're a slightly newer player. In 40k, you can do that in some kind of weird mixing of ways and keywords. I don't believe it's optimal, but it is technically possible within a matched play game. In Kill Team, it's not.
Yeah, 40k, because you have the different detachments. You could have a Marine detachment and you could have a Demon detachment. But basically, if you're coming from 40k, you got to look at Kill Team as just one detachment. Yeah. So everyone's got to be the same.
And somebody's saying he'd love to double pilot HA and Demons TBH. As we just very quickly alluded to there, check out the Commanders International packet. You can run the Chaos Demons, as I spoke about with Shane when we were talking about the Demons faction there. And you can take one of the Heretic Astartes commanders and have that be your commander, which I think is very fluffy, very cool. And here's a question we haven't answered, which I think is actually a really good one. What are your favourite minis to use for cultists and also berserkers?
So for cultists, all my cultists are they are the old Chaos Marauders blended with some guard bits with last guns and stuff like that. I think they just look really cool. The new Age of Sigmar guys, I forget what they are. They're basically the new Marauders.
Yeah.
I think they work really well as cultists as well. You just throw the guns on them, and they're kind of good to go.
Right.
For Horn Berserkers, yeah, I hate the. So I have a massive 40k army. I've actually sold off all my Corn Berserkers because compared to what's out there these days, the old models are terrible. So what I've done is I blended Chaos Space Marine box with the Age of Sigmar. What is it? Khorne Chosen guys.
Yeah.
The armor guys. Their helmets are great. The really cool Khorne helmets. And they got axe weapons and stuff, and they just really you can really put together some decent minis with them.
Yes. I think some of them even have like fist-like weapons as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if you've got the Chaos Space Marines box and you're mixing those bits, then you'll have chain swords as well.
Yep.
So you can actually make them completely kitted out legally. I believe.
Want me to grab it real fast?
You go for it, yeah. I'll waffle. And so I kind of echo what he says there. When it comes to Chaos Cultists, actually, use anything. Use anything on a 25mm base. If you just want to run Imperial Guard and say they're cultists, that's totally 100% fine. In fact, that's probably what most people do, because the only Chaos Cultists that came out that were good were never sold again in the Dark Vengeance box. Beautiful sprues, don't sell them. It's mad. Other things you could do, I know that from Age of Sigmar, they have Ulrich Acolytes, I think they're called, if you want to run a Tzeentch-themed force. Those are great. They look awesome. But something I've taken to doing, actually, is because I'm going for a specific kind of look and feel. I actually quite like just pick any Necromunda mini. They're all valid. I've just picked up a box of the Cawdor. No, not Cawdor. Oh, the minor guys. I can't remember what they're called. I think they're cool. So I'm going to use them. They're not going to be kitted out. They're going to be kitted out with however they should come in Necromunda, so pistols and stuff. But because they're all going to be run exactly the same way, and they'll just be perfect. Perfect little guys.
See them.
Yes.
Focused. So you can see the head is Age of Sigmar.
Yep.
And then the axes too, and then he uses the chain sword from the kit and the body and the backpack, and it all comes together pretty good.
Oh, okay. So I've seen the same thing done where you literally just use that model and stick a backpack on the back, I think.
Yeah, really easy, yeah.
Okay.
But it works, and I like them. And now, technically they're bigger than the Corn Berserkers are supposed to be, and they're on bigger. I think GW up the Corn Berserker base, but they just look much better.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. Certainly, I need to figure out what I'm doing for my Corn Berserkers. I haven't decided yet, because either way, you got to buy 2 boxes and then smash them together. But I'll figure it out.
Yeah, if you do it, if you can still find it, you can find the Age of Sigmar starter when they first went to Age of Sigmar that had half of the Khorne guys and half of the not fantasy space marine guys.
Stormcast.
And you can find just the Khorne half on eBay pretty cheap. And that's what I wound up doing. So then you have guys to make cultists and guys to make marines, and then you just need 1 box of space marines and you're good to go.
Right, makes sense.
And that's a whole team. It's pretty cheap. I think you're looking at $50 or something, 60 maybe for the whole team. And it's literally every model you'll need to make that team, except for an auto.
Okay. Well, yeah. I think somebody asked this. Blackstone Fortress. What's the faction from there called? Servants of the Abyss.
Yeah.
Yes, they are essentially a Chaos sub-faction, but they are so removed from the Heretic Astartes faction. It would be like trying to compare Heretic Astartes to Nurgle. To Death Guard. Like, they're so different. they're not really something we can fully cover here, I think.
Yeah, you gotta picture that chaos is like the Imperium, where you have Heretic Astartes, Death Guard, Thousand Sons, Demons, Servants of the Abyss. They're five completely separate factions, just as much as Guard are from Marines and from Custodes and Sisters and all of them. So
yes, but the other thing they're saying there is that the cultists from Blackstone Fortress are good
yeah.
for cultists. Yes, they are. Definitely use them.
Yeah, they're great.
I think they're technically corrupted guardsmen because they're all guard models. But
No, they have both in Blackstone. They have
oh, do they? Okay.
Guard and cultists.
Okay, right. But yes, those all work definitely.
And there's the cultist box if you want to use that too. I mean, there's no
Oh yeah.
problem with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they have it. I've just been playing 40k so long that I've had cultists before they had cultist models, so I just use those models.
Nice. And oh wait, what are they saying? Yep. Okay, shall we go over to the second list you've given us?
Sure.
Oh, just to clarify, that first list we had, that was 125 points, right? Or was that 100?
I think it's 125. These are all
Okay.
120.
I thought so. Yeah, I thought so. Okay.
Like
Right.
I said, the tournament I'm running is 100. It
Yes.
seems like 125 has kind of been the standard once Elites came out.
Yes.
Which
Yeah.
I don't think is a bad thing at all. I think it's a good point stop for most games.
And yeah, I'm actually surprised you sent me 125 lists. I thought you might have gone all 100 because, of course, presumably that's what you've been thinking about most because of your tournament coming up. But
It's funny is that here in the East Coast United States, before COVID, because of where Nova is, 100 was kind of the meta around here.
sure.
And then the Slaughter Zone packet came over, and people started paying 125. But then since I've gone to TTS because of COVID, everyone pretty much plays 125.
Yeah.
So it's definitely it's been an interesting change of the meta. It is really nice because like, oh look, I get all these toys now on my list.
It's so much more fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay, makes sense. Right. Everyone's just raving about Blackstone Fortress now, so we can move on from the chat, I think. So I've brought up your alt list. Do you want to tell us what's going on here?
sure. This is kind of something different. Like I said, I think 90% of Chaos players are going to run a list similar to what I put out. They're going to run Renegades with Corn Berserkers.
Yeah.
If you're looking for something very different, this is a shooting list. It's an Iron Warriors list because I think they're probably the best shooting. Well, they're the only shooting faction, really. And it's basically centered around you're just going to shoot the tar out of your enemy. Cultist leader, as always, Mark of Zinch. The Plasma Sniper, the auto gun with demolitions, and a Terminator with a second Reaper auto gun cannon, and he's your heavy. And the idea there is that the Space Marine autocannon is just kind of sit back and have a good firing place, whereas the Terminator is going to start advancing up the field, laying down fire. Then you'll have 4 cultists just for holding objectives, and then another cultist gunner with the heavy stubber because I had a point,
Sure.
and then another Terminator gunner. This one with a combi plas, which again he's just walking up the field, shooting people to death with his plasma. I would never overheat it unless you're in a do or die situation, because the Chaos Plasma is you are removed from play, which you don't want to happen to the Terminator.
No.
I know
Isn't that the same for all?
Is it? Because I thought there was, maybe it is. I thought 1 or 2 of them was like you lose a wound or something like that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm misremembering or thinking of 40k, but yeah, the fact that if it was lose a wound, I'd say go for it, but remove from play, I would never overheat.
Yeah, you don't get the 50-50. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Now, would you ever actually run this list competitively, or
No.
this is just kind of fun? Okay.
It's kind of fun now. Like I said, the reason why everyone's running a Renegade list is because it is, I think, far and beyond the best Chaos Space Marine list. This would, definitely be something for fun if, I'm going to my local shop and have a lot of new players and stuff, just for something different, with the Terminators kind of marching up the field, laying down fire and everything else. Just for something different.
fair enough. And you're taking them all Slanesh, is that right?
Yeah.
Or
Again, just so you can double fire with somebody.
yeah, okay. It's just so that you can pick differently who you're going to take that double shot with. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Fair enough. Indeed. Yeah. I don't have anything to add to that. It's another way to run Heretic Astartes. Shall we jump over to skewed? The skew list you've given me.
Sure.
So, for those of you unaware, when I'm doing these interviews, I ask for a skew list. Which, if you're not sure what that is, a skew list is a list that very, very heavily plays into a single trick that it can do. You could argue almost that the one we just showed was a skew list where all you're doing is shooting. If for some reason you don't want, or you can't be in combat, you might consider that list as a genuinely competitive list, possibly. But
I mean, it's even got the 2 Terminators, which aren't bad for combat.
no, sure.
They got power swords, so.
So what's this skew list?
So this list is based off of the list I took to the first Nova Open, where we only had the core rulebook, and that list was Occultist Leader, Occultist Heavy Stubber, Occultist Demo Flamer, and a K-Space Marine Sniper Plasma, and the rest were Cultists. Came to a 20-man list, which was my whole roster, which was really fun during muster, because I'm like, all right, I'm done.
Yeah.
Let's roll some dice. And this is based off that list. This is bumped up to 125.
Right.
So I can take a couple Berserkers in there. And basically it plays the same. You're going to swarm the table, try to get an early lead, because you're going to break. And that is really, morale checks is probably the biggest weak point of chaos lists.
Yeah.
Especially if you're running a fair amount of cultists, is that eventually you're going to break, and if you break, everyone's going to fail their nerve checks because you're going to be down 8 guys, because you're running, when you're running 13 guys, they got to kill, 8. And once they kill 8, everyone's needs a 1 to pass. So that's why, also kind of going back when we were talking about tactics, is I don't like a lot of the 2-point tactics is, especially in late game, I want to make sure I have a CP left to auto pass a nerve check on someone on a crucial objective or in a crucial combat or something.
Sure.
But this runs the same way. You're just going to run out, swarm the battlefield, try to get to an early lead, because they are probably going to break you once they mow through all those cultists. But it's going to be really hard for people to take objectives, especially with 2 core berserkers in their face real fast as you can get it. And that's basically it. You're just going for the objective game on that one.
Sure. Okay. Yes, I think I remember this list being taken to Nova back before, Kill Team was such an established thing, and before we had access to people. It was like, who's this guy running 20 cultists? The fool.
That was me.
Yeah. And I remember at the time we knew it could be done with Tyranids, because of course Tyranids have the ability to ignore that you've just lost half your team, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, the fact that somebody did it with cultists, I remember thinking, oh, that doesn't make any sense. How can you do that? Because you just kill all of the cultists and then they break and then that's it. I guess I was right in that's how you beat the list, right? You just kill it, and then hope they roll under their leadership, which I guess is 7 on this, or is there an 8 in there?
It's 7.
Okay, so 50-50 to break. Yeah.
Oh no, it's 8. I'm sorry, because there's a core berserker in there.
Okay.
The champion. 8. Yeah, but at Nova I only had the 7.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that's what happened. Is that fortunately Nova was all positional, with some kill secondaries, and so the plasma gun was doing all the killing. But even at the end of the day, it comes down to a 50-50 injury check. So whether it's a cultist or a marine, it's still that 50-50, and that's really what saves them. Is that people got to get through that, and it's a lot of guys. I mean, it's 20 guys too. You got to remember.
Yes.
So you got to kill 11.
Yeah.
You got to kill 11 guys in the cost of return. In cost of a game, I played one guy with his Death Watch, and they have the frag cannons, and which can be real scary. But if you keep your guys spread apart. I don't care how many hits and wounds you get with that frag cannon, you're still only going to 1 injury check.
Sure.
And I didn't do a single wound to that entire team, and still decisively won that game.
Right.
Just going pure positionals. But you have to expect that you're not going to get any points turn 4.
Sure.
You're going to probably break 3.
Poor Death Watch. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Poor Death Watch. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, spam still works. I think it's a good thing to say. I know that, you know, in recent tournament packs, because we've added the kill, people have moved quite heavily away from spam lists, which makes sense because, of course, spam worked in hold 3 at 100 points because you couldn't get enough elites into the list to really do serious amounts of damage to that 20-man list, I would say. And the weakness of the list was you killed enough of them. But once you've moved to 125 and the killing, the negative of the list, you know, breaking it, becomes easier. And also, even though the effectiveness of the list is the same, like the 20-man spam list, because the weakness is now easier to exploit and get to, nothing's changed for the 20-man spam, but it is easier to get through. And I still think, bizarrely, it's not terrible if you want to go to a tournament thinking, I'm going to run spam.
Right.
You probably, yeah.
The thing you gotta remember, like, at this list, so, like let's say, like, you're playing, like, the Ibercon list from Spain.
Yes.
That's hold 1, hold more, kill 1. This can easily kill a guy a turn.
Right.
And so this could max out. And even if you're doing kill more, hold more, this could easily rack up 3 points a turn. You're going to hold more objectives than your opponent. They're going to be almost impossible for even if there's guys on there, you just pile a whole bunch of cultists on it. And then most of those max out at 12. So if you're holding more, you know, hold 1, hold more, and kill 1 guy each turn, you're still maxing out all your primaries. And now it's back to secondaries. So you're right. It's not terrible. I think spam lists can definitely work. I think NIDs are better, just because they're fearless, as long as you got some sin out of them.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. I think we're kind of done so we're done with the lists. We don't have any more lists. Did you have any kind of advanced things you really wanted to talk about for Heretics?
I think we covered the Corn Berserkers. I mean, really, that placement and where you're going with your consolidations and pile-ins is really going to make or break you for most games.
Okay.
And that's always going to be where you're going to catch your opponent off guard sometimes too, is when you kind of swing a guy around in a way they didn't expect. And the inches matter a lot.
And then you're able to do it with 4 different models. All yeah, indeed. If nobody's faced that, if you haven't faced that Berserker Blitz before, and they've somehow you managed to let them get like all 4 charges off with Berserkers, you're going to be very confused, and you're going to ask this question like, wait, are you sure that's how the rule works? Like, are you sure? This seems like bullshit. But yeah.
It seems like a lot. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
He's gonna attack twice and just... It's what they do, though, right? That's all they can do is murder people in close combat.
Yeah.
So they're really, really good at it.
Yes, definitely. Arguably one of the best in the games purely because they can fight twice. They can get the 2 injury rolls even though they've only got the 1 damage weapon.
And that's big in close combat in this game, I think, is that, you know... And you'll find that that's the thing. Is you'll wound a guy, get an injury through, and not take him out. And so you're like, I won't re-roll that now. Let me see how the next round goes. And then you can usually put another one through, and then you can re-roll. That one's on a 3, so you're much more likely to get that off if you even have to re-roll.
Yes. And basically all of them are 3 attacks, aren't they? Because you're giving them a chainsword, and then,
Yep. And then you put a combat in there, and he's 4, and you got your champion zealot, who's 5. So it's a lot of attacks coming in.
Definitely. So that's kind of our chat about Kill Team Heretic Astartes done. If anybody has any questions, please ask, whilst we have a quick chat about how we can go up to 40k from there for the last 10 minutes. Do
Sure.
you want to start or shall I?
I could start. So
Okay.
basically, you want to take all your Kill Team models and throw them in the trash if you're going to play the game with them. Core Berserkers are terrible. Basic Space Marines are terrible. Cultists are
Awkward.
good. Deep
Okay.
groups. Unfortunately, you're not going to move a lot of stuff over from one to the other.
Right. Okay. That's damn. All right. Well, you've demoralised me already. Um. Okay. So. I'm not a huge 40k player at the moment. I'm getting into it, but one of the big things I've heard from most people is when you're going to start playing 40k, the start collecting Chaos Space Marines is actually a really good buy. It gives you so it gives you one 10-man squad of Space Marines, but really it's two in my opinion, because 5 of them are bolters, 5 of them are chainsword and bolt pistol. Sounds perfect to split those up into 2 squads of 5. You do get an autocannon in it, which is great, and you do get a plasma in it, which is also great. And then the Venom Crawler. So there's the Greater Possessed, which is good for Kill Team, because of course it's a commander. And it's an HQ slot in 40k. I don't know if it's good or not. And outside of that, the other 5 models in there, the 2 Obliterators and the 2 Greater Possessed and the Venom Crawler can only be got in that box. So, yeah, pick one of those up. That's how to start. It's a really solid start.
And Obliterators are great in 40k.
Okay.
Even Possessed, I would say, are much better in 40k than they are in Kill Team, just because of the amount of buffs you can start throwing on them.
Yes.
You can get them to basically where they're invincible.
Ooh.
But yeah, it's definitely funny that what's good in 40k for Chaos is not really good in Kill Team, and vice versa.
It's very odd. Yeah, but all right, fair enough, I
Yeah.
guess. Outside of that, I don't know where you go next. You probably want to buy a Rhino, because transports are in this edition.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that's about all I know.
there's a lot of interesting stuff you can get in there. Chaos is some of the best 40k lists out there.
Hmm.
Again, it's not with models from Kill Team. Mixing demons in works real well. Like last night, I was watching a friend with Thousand Suns and Zinch demons, and just he had like a 20-minute long psychic phase where he's just blasting stuff out.
Right.
I'm putting together a list that's got 2 Brass Scorpions and Angrath. I've seen really great lists that are cultist spam with the Oclith thing that gives them basically all a 5-up invul save,
Right.
which becomes sick. And like we said, Alpha Legion is great in 40k. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot you can go with them, and I think there's a lot of good builds in 40k. Even I've been seeing some rumblings about some really good Slanesh lists out there. But yeah, just it's not the models you need that you get from Kill Team. So
Right. Also, obviously, don't forget 9th edition. We don't have our codex yet, so maybe in a few months, 6 months to 2 years, who knows? Um, Kill Team will be, every model you've just bought for your Kill Team is going to be amazing. Why aren't Khorne Berserkers good in 40k?
can't get there, and you can't buff them to be stupid like other armies can.
Right.
A lot of buffs and stuff keyword into your Legion or even your Mark. So like the nice thing about Possessed is you can run them with like a Mark of Nurgle,
Right.
and then you can put all sorts of Nurgle buffs on them, and then like you can have Nurgle heralds near them, and they're giving them buffs and stuff because they also have the demons special rule. So they can get there, and then they can do a lot of nasty stuff when they do. Whereas Khorne Berserkers just don't have that.
Sure. Yep, that makes sense. Obviously, 40k is a slightly different beast.
Yeah, you got a lot.
It's all about rerolls. That's what I hear.
Rerolls and combos.
Yeah.
I think my friend was playing where like you could get the Possessed up to a 4-up invul save. You can't shoot them if there's a squad of Nurglings which are closer to you, and then their 5s or 6s do mortal wounds, and it's just with rerolls and everything. It's just craziness. And Khorne Berserkers just can't get that.
Right. Fair enough. I knew that there was the issue with getting them across the board, but that's why I said pick up a Rhino. There you go. Oh, I'm going to show it to everybody in chat. There you go. They all get to see it as well. I just bought this from RTLW. It's their Demon Host model. I'm going to run it as my Demon Prince. There you go. I think it's a cool ass model, yo. I'm hyped for it. There you go. Right. But I think that's about it. Do you have anything else you want to say regarding Kill Team?
I think that's it.
Okay, excellent. In that case, would you like to plug whatever you want to plug?
Just if you're, like I said, if you're interested in playing on the Worldwide Open, there's a link in the chat, in the comments. You can message me on Discord. I'm on there too if you have any questions. But it should be really fun. And there's actually an entry fee. This is going to be the first TTS tournament we're doing with a fee. But 100% of the fees goes into prize support. So, and the way Nova works kind of works the opposite of a lot of other comps, whereas everyone starts in one big pool, and then we play 4 rounds, 2 open, 2 an arena, and then we break into 8-man brackets depending on people's records. So even if you go in there and you get stomped, you'll go into a bracket with people of your own kind of skill and win-loss record, and winners of that will get a prize. So don't think, well, I'm kind of a mid-level player, or I consider myself a lower-level player, and I'm not going to win anything if I play. Well, no, you can. You'll be put in a bracket with people of a similar skill, and it's kind of like an all-new tournament that you guys will play against just those 8 people.
So you say that this is the first tournament with an entry fee. I'd pitch this is the first tournament with a prize pool. A little bit of wording change for you there. Sure. There you go. That sounds much better.
Like
yeah.
You're right.
And so, correct me. Is this like actually affiliated with Nova in any way, or okay, that's just a thing. Okay,
it's just all me doing it.
Okay, and I suppose the final thing about this, if people aren't aware, is it alternates between an open board and an arena board. Is that right?
Yes. So rounds 1 through 4 are going to be 2 arena, 2 open, and then when we go into the brackets, that's going to be 3 rounds, 1 open, 1 arena, and then the final round is going to be the 2 players are going to play 2 games, 1 in arena, 1 in open, and the winner is going to be determined by by combining the 2 scores from the 2 games.
Right, interesting. Certainly, I know that in the last Nova, it came down to the final was Tau and Orcs, and Tau took it because on the very final game, they got the short board edge deployment,
yep.
And so that was rough for the Orcs.
2 games in a row, something that the TO recognized was an issue and was actually going to. This year, Nova was going to be run basically the way I'm doing it. Sure. With that final round being on an open and an arena board with the combined scores being the final score, which is definitely one thing that I really like about the Nova team. Giving them a shout out is they were always open to player comments and always kind of evolving the tournament to see how they can run it better.
Excellent, and hopefully, of course, next year Nova will actually be on again. Fingers crossed, get everybody back out there. I suppose there's probably one more question I should ask about your pack, but I can't think of it. So, great.
Secondaries is detailed in the arena book. So you shuffle the pack, you create a pool of 6, and then each player picks 3 out of that pool of 6.
Okay, and it's obviously 100 points.
100 points,
just to throw that out there again, as obviously that's quite different to the 125 that's been going around recently. Yes, the start date. When does it actually start?
Written down, I forget. Hold on, let me pull my calendar. Sorry.
Yeah, no, sure.
The 14th of December.
Ooh, coming up quick.
Yeah, the first 2 rounds though are going to be 2-week rounds. I know that's really long, but because of the holidays, I think people are going to appreciate the extra time, even though it's a game in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then after that, everything's going to be 1 week.
So you'll be doing the first month. You'll need to get 2 games in.
Yes.
Okay. And then the next 2 weeks, one game each. Okay.
Right.
So you'll be wrapping up end of January. No.
No, February.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Okay,
gonna take.
fair enough.
It's gonna be long,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I
I
mean, I could have started. We could have started maybe in the new year. Um, but then I think with COVID, I think a lot of people are gonna be home anyway.
Sure.
And maybe, if everyone's stuck home and everyone gets through their games faster, I'll of course end the rounds earlier. If everyone can get their game done in a week, we'll just go to the next one right away.
Yeah.
But we'll see. But I wanted just because you just don't know with the holidays and everything else this year, everything's weird, and it's who knows what people's schedules look like.
Sure. Okay, awesome. We'll check that out. The description is the description. The link is in the description below, or you can jump into my Discord. Matt H is in there, and we can get you over to where you need to be from there. Awesome.
Yep.
Okay. Well, would you like to say goodbye to the people?
Goodbye. Thanks a lot for having me on. I appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
No problem. Thank you very much for coming on, and a big thanks from everybody in chat, I'm sure, and everybody watching this later. For teaching us all about the Heretic Astartes. Certainly you cleared a lot of things up, those little niggly rules issues with charging and Blood for the Blood God mainly, that even I was a little bit like, what is this? So that was really helpful. Thank you very much. And a big thank you to everybody in chat, everybody that's going to watch this later, for coming along and staying this far till the end. So if you have made it this far, which, by the way, is a solid 8% of people that make it to the end of a video. Thank YouTube Analytics for me knowing that. A big triple hello for coming all this way. It's very good to see you here. And I suppose finally, I hope you've had a good day, and I hope you continue to have a good day.